Welcome to Washington in Focus. I'm Jeremy Lott. Joining me today is the Center Square's State House reporter, Brett Davis. Democratic leadership in the House of Representatives is open to considering a bill that would prevent businesses in Washington state, with some exceptions, from requiring a drug test to screen for cannabis usage as a condition of employment. Joe Fitzgibbon, Democrat of D-Burien, said during the Democratic leader's weekly media availability, quote, I think, to be completely blunt, Brett, what happened after that?
I have to say, first of all, I don't know if he made that joke on purpose or if it was a happy accident. I laughed when he said that. Earlier in the week, the Senate passed this legislation, and I believe you wrote a story on that. That's correct, yes. Right, Jeremy? So at this media availability event, Democrats, they seem to be open to passing this legislation. So it looks like it could be on its way. We'll have to wait and see.
The legislation, it's an interesting bit of legislation. It's an interesting bill because it makes it illegal for employers to use cannabis as a screen for employment, which means that right now, if whatever Quickie Drug Mart or whatever wants to hire me, and they say, you got to pass a drug test first. And they screen for many things. They would screen for opioids. They would screen for heroin, whatever they're screening for. But often one of the things that they screen for is marijuana. Now, this bit of legislation does not allow that as a screen beforehand. Tell us a little bit about some of the ins and outs of this one, Brett.
Part of the challenge with the bill is that under federal law, marijuana is still illegal. So the state is trying to, balance that against keeping people in the workforce who use marijuana, which is, legal in Washington state.
It wouldn't allow employers to screen for pot usage beforehand and use that as a condition of employment. However, on day one, you could still drug test them and fire them because this still allows employers to have a drug-free workplace, including marijuana.
I guess this leads to the obvious question, then, what's the point of this?
It's one of those times where I truly don't understand what they're saying. What they've said is that people often have, residual marijuana in their system for a while, and thus, when they will go to try to test for a job, they'll blow a positive, right?
Right.
But then, they could, of course, not use that while on the job, but they would not be able to get the job because of this residual marijuana. But if they're regular marijuana users, then they're going to lose the job anyways. So I just...
Sort of a heads I win, tails you lose proposition.
Yeah, they have, because of the disconnect between Washington state and federal law, they've said basically anything that's connected to federal employment, specifically the aerospace industry is one of the things they very, very clearly said.
One of the legislators mentioned getting a commercial driver's license also.
Yeah, there are things that are currently disallowed. They aren't trying to go there when it comes to anything that's connected very obviously with federal things. But I will say that the Senate Labor and Commerce Committee considered but rejected as overbroad a Republican amendment to the bill allowing for pot pre-screenings for, quote, safety-sensitive positions for which impairment while working presents a substantial risk of death or serious injury to the worker, co-workers, or members of the public. The chair of the committee did say that, she was open to further refinement later on, but that she just thought that was overbroad as written. So
House Speaker Lori Jenkins sort of focused on the workforce aspect of the legislation. She said, it's challenging because cannabis use is legal here, but like I said, federally it's not. And she said it's negatively impacting the workforce. And she'd like to see the, federal government get on this somehow and change that.
In a related issue, actually, our governor, our attorney general, our senators have been lobbying the federal government to pass a law that would make it illegal to bank for pot shops in this state to have actual banking because they're not allowed to because banks are regulated federally.
Pretty much an all cash business.
Yeah, that's one of the stated causes for a really large number of pot shops getting knocked off repeatedly. I don't know. It's really interesting. What was it? What year did we vote to make marijuana legal?
2012, Washington became the first state in the country to legalize recreational marijuana. It's been quite a while now.
Yeah, I'm just trying to remember, was that the year that we actually voted for it, or because there was a time period before it actually became legal?
The vote may have taken place slightly before that.
I do know from memory, and this is the reason I'm asking, that the referendum was opposed by Jay Inslee, who was running for governor for the first time then, and his Republican opponent actually endorsed it. Inslee managed to narrowly win, but so did the referendum. No, it's just really interesting to see how a governor who was more of a drug warrior has now turned around, and he's trying to lobby the federal government to at least somewhat decriminalize this, so that we can have a regular industry here, banks and stuff, so that rising crime in Washington State doesn't hit pot stores quite as hard. I don't know. Anything else on this issue that struck you when you were covering the back and forth and the Democratic weekly scrum, I guess you'd call it?
I don't know if I guess I wasn't really surprised, but it's interesting. You mentioned this just a little bit ago, how marijuana has become so uncontroversial, so to speak. Times have changed. Yeah. No, there was, there were recently a bunch of initiatives that didn't quite get qualified for the ballot, but that one of them would have illegalized many drugs, but they made very clear that did not apply to marijuana. Listeners can keep up with this story and more at thecentersquare.com. For Brett Davis, I'm Jeremy Lott. Please subscribe, and thanks for listening.